Are these creepy story times, fact or fiction? Storytime, he marked us for surgery. I moved to a new city with my son and new wife. After getting divorced, I had a pretty healthy bank account, so we bought a huge house. For a while everything was great until one morning our lives turned into an actual nightmare. That day I woke up confused and on edge because I felt like I had overslept. I was right, and it was an hour after my alarm should have gone off. My wife was still asleep too, which was really strange, but I didn't think about it too much and just woke her up. When I finally stopped rushing around and really looked at my wife, I froze. She was all marked up on her face, and I could see more markings coming out from her shirt. These were the kinds of markings a cosmetic surgeon would make before performing a surgery. My wife was completely creeped out because the marks were all over her body, but she woke up fully clothed. My son at the time was 5, so the only explanation was he had to do it. We told him that kind of thing wasn't okay, and tried to move on. But something still didn't seem right about the whole thing. A week later it happens again. I'm late waking up, and so is my wife, but this time I'm all marked up for surgery too. At this point, I'm fuming, so I stormed into my son's room. And what I saw stopped me cold. My son lay laying in bed, and was also marked for surgery, even on his back, in places he could never reach. I immediately grabbed my son, woke my wife, and ran out of the house. When the police arrived, we were still covered in these pre-surgery marks, and some were in places that are really hard to reach, if you know what I mean. The officer said there was nothing they could do after searching the house and failing to find anything. I wasn't going back in that house without answers, so we set up cameras. 2 weeks go by, and it happens again. We wake up late covered in pre-surgery marks, and I immediately start watching the camera footage. I still get sick to my stomach when I remember what I saw that day. Some random guy walks into our bedroom carrying our son. This man takes the time to undress us. Then he carefully marks us for surgery, takes pictures, and then redresses us. I couldn't understand why we never woke up while all of this was happening, so I went back and looked at more footage. This man was putting something in our drinks to knock us out the night before. While we were in the house, we notified the police, even showed them the video and everything, but the guy was never caught. I wonder where he is now. So what is it? Fact or fiction? Storytime, he never screamed. A couple years ago I was doing stupid shite and landed myself in prison. The ward I should have been on was overcrowded, so they sent me to the ward for the criminally insane. Worst 6 months of my life. A ton of weird creepy shite happened to me in there. But I'll just tell you this one story. Since it was the criminally insane ward, we all wore these monitors, kind of like a fitness watch. These monitors told the guards and nurses our heart rate, blood pressure, things that would let them know if we were stressed out about something. Well, one night I'm in my cell, and I start hearing these really weird noises coming from my cellmate's top bunk. I can't even describe it, but it reminded me of gutting a fish. I didn't want to look up on his bunk because I didn't want to interrupt and get myself involved. So I just laid there and listened to these sounds. As soon as I close my eyes, something starts dripping on my face. I think it's pee and react. Now, because I'm wearing this monitor, the lights in our cell immediately flash on, and I can hear guards running towards us. I looked at my hands and realized it wasn't pee. It was blood. The guards rushed in and threw me on the ground, so I didn't get to see what was going on. All I knew is there was a lot of blood. The next day, I found out my cellmate was up there ripping his own eyes out with his bare hands. His monitors never flagged distress, and he never screamed. So what is it? Fact or fiction?
Storytime, why you should never take a shortcut. My mom and I always go on road trips together, just something we do. On one of these trips, Maps asks if we want to take a faster route. For some reason I immediately felt like it was a terrible idea, but my mom didn't care. Maps takes us off of the highway and into this really small town. Before we know it, we're on a dirt road, and the worst thing that could possibly happens. We lose cell service, both of our phones at the same time, and there's nothing we can do. Naturally we decide to just turn around and go back the way we came, but it wasn't that simple. The road out seemed way longer than it did coming in, and we still couldn't get service. At this point I'm panicked and praying that the car doesn't shut down, when something that might be worse happens. A girl comes running into the road covered in blood and dirt, screaming for us to please help her. She starts banging on my window and trying to open the doors, so I start freaking out. My mom floors it because now we're both panicked. I looked up into the rear view mirror just in time to see the girl being pulled off of the road by this huge figure. We were too afraid to stop, so we just kept driving, and I don't think that girl survived. Mom and I still take road trips, but we just go the long way.
What do you think? Fact or fiction?
Storytime, he's under my skin. I'm writing this story under a ghost account for obvious reasons. You'll understand after you've heard the whole thing. As a little kid about 5, I was outside playing when this man grabbed me and took me. He moved us away to another state and pretended to be my dad. I was super young, so it didn't take much for me to just accept my new normal. Plus my mom was the only parent I ever knew. So I only ever tell people I miss my mom. When that would happen, he would just tell people my mom died. Easy enough. And no one ever asked questions. My life was pretty normal because, as I got older, I believed everything he said. And I thought he was really my dad. That is until one day I saw my face on a missing persons alert while I was scrolling. At this point, I was 15. And I started questioning everything, searching everything. And I realized my entire life was a lie. There is no way I was going to let him get away with what he did, so I came up with a plan. I won't bore you with the details, but let's just say he ended up trapped in our basement for months. I just wanted him to admit what he did. And then I was going to let him go. But when he finally did admit everything to me, something inside me snapped, and I lost it. I don't even remember everything that happened, but I do remember this. He was my dad, and a part of me still loved him. So I found a way to get rid of his body and keep him with me forever, one gulp at a time. Everyone asks me if I'm afraid he'll come back for me since he's never been found, but they don't know he's under my skin.
So what is it? Fact or fiction?
Storytime, he almost got away. When I was a teenager, my family was poor, so my brother and I would try and help however we could. One day this guy asks my brother if he would do a photo shoot in exchange for some money, so my brother agreed. But my brother didn't walk into a photo shoot. He walked into a nightmare. This guy started torturing my brother and even drilled a hole into his head that reached his brain. My brother wasn't wearing clothes and was beaten up pretty badly, but somehow he escaped. He made it all the way out of this guy's place and found people. Those people called the cops and explained my brother was not dressed. He was beaten up and he was bleeding. Everyone thought it was over and my brother was safe when the cops arrived. But then the officers did something straight out of horror film. They brought him back to place he had just escaped from and left him there. My brother was never seen again. And what happened to the guy that he almost escaped from? He was caught 2 months later trying to do the same thing to 3 new guys.
What do you think? Fact or fiction? Storytime, I still can't explain it. One night when I was 14, I woke up to my dad calmly but firmly telling me to get up and go in my closet. I was too tired to argue, so I just listened. The next morning, I woke up in the closet in pain and confused. When I went downstairs, my whole family was nowhere to be found. I didn't think anything of it and just went to school. When I got home, the house was still empty, and even though it was super weird, I wasn't panicking yet. I was really tired from the night before, so I laid on the couch and fell asleep. I didn't wake up until hours later, and still I was the only one home. I checked the time, and it was after 9 p.m., so I figured I'd call my aunt. She had no idea what was going on either, and told me to wait for her at the house. At first my aunt seemed pretty calm, but as she looked around the house, I started to see the dread on her face. My mom's purse was still in the house, and so was my dad's wallet. We couldn't find any of their cell phones, and when we called, they went straight to voicemail. I hadn't remembered my dad woke me until I realized something might be wrong.